Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mike. You guys are rocking with me at Mike's Intellectual Corner. On today's episode, we are going to be diving into another alternate history hub. Because I know I only did one of them, and that video did pretty good, so I'm going to try to do another one. This one is, what if Operation Unthinkable happened? And without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it. Let's go.
It's no surprise that the West and the USSR hated each other. It's no surprise that immediately after Berlin fell, the Iron Curtain rose. Yet it is a surprise that there was a plan so ludicrous and dangerous, it not only would have caused World War III, but nuclear war. It came from none other than Winston Churchill. This plan was called Operation Unthinkable. Churchill was angry at the amount of countries the Soviets claimed influence over after Nazi Germany fell. He believed that when World War II was finished, that the USSR would have been on the brink of collapse. However, this...
And I don't know why either, because, I mean, at this point, he already knew, like, you know what I'm saying, that there was two giants in the room, as, you know, the saying always used to be. Like, he always didn't feel like, you know, the time of Great Britain, or I guess had passed, or something like that. If I'm not mistaken, let me know if I'm wrong or not.
Was not the case, and Churchill did not like this new world. The USSR had begun installing new communist governments in Eastern Europe, and their armies were too far west in Churchill's eyes. Thus, he proposed a solution called Operation Unthinkable, and it was truly unthinkable. The plan was a full-scale Anglo-American conflict against the Russians. It was meant to drive out the Soviet forces from Germany, Poland, and Eastern Europe to counter Russia's ever-growing power. Since it was so over the top, many thought Operation Unthinkable was suicidal. Thus, the plan of total...
And that just sounds like a suicide mission anyway. Like, you really think you're going to be able to just do what two other huge armies couldn't do, essentially? Which is kind of crazy to think about, but I guess he thought about it.
Total war was quickly ignored by reasonable leaders. Soon after, Churchill was voted out of office for unrelated reasons. Yet what if Operation Unthinkable was put into effect? What if it actually happened? What would be the outcome if such a strange plan was carried out?
Probably a huge war, obviously World War III, and it would not have been as easy as I'm sure Churchill was thinking. That would have been years of fighting, you know what I'm saying?
Well, here is one scenario. The first obstacle the Allied powers, allied as in British and Americans, would have had to overcome is the vast numbers difference between them and the Russians. The Russian force numbered in total of 11 million, 6.5 of which were on the German front. The Soviet army simply outnumbered the Anglo-American force 2-1. So how would the Allies...
Well, I know one of their ways too was trying to freaking, if it ever came to like a nuclear, you know, strike, they were going to make freaking Germany, unfortunately, into like a hellscape, or, you know, the whole Iron Curtain essentially into a hellscape, and just bomb the crap out of it, which is just crazy to think about, you know what I'm saying? Like the loss of life and all that, just how they didn't care.
Counter this? Well, the plan was to rearm 100,000 captured German soldiers and revive the destroyed German war machine. This time, however, under Allied control, against the Russians. Yet even bringing back the Germans would not be enough to equal the Soviets, so there was another option: nuclear war. Churchill knew about Project Manhattan and how the Americans had the potential to create a nuclear bomb. Keep in mind, this was before the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So the plan was to harness American nukes to bomb USSR cities, most importantly Moscow, Kiev, and such. In his mind, this would be enough to crush the Soviets into submission and force their retreat, or at least disorient them while the Allied forces swept over Europe. Operation Unthinkable goes into effect. On July 1st, 1945, the Allied powers launch a full-scale military...
And it's crazy too, because they didn't think about like probably didn't even think about the after effects. Obviously they didn't know what they were doing pretty much, but they didn't, like, obviously them bombing so close, I guarantee you a good amount of that would have swept back into Great Britain and all that anyway. So that'd been horrible.
Assault against Russian positions. This coalition of British, American, and German forces, 47 divisions in total, cross into communist territory. The fighting is brutal, drawn out, in an upward fight for the Allies. Not only would they need to push past Germany, but into Poland, East Russia, Moscow, or even farther to stop any USSR resistance. The Soviets begin to overtake the Allies, and the Americans decide to bring in the big guns.
Yeah, they have to capture a lot. So that's what I'm saying. That would be like years of fighting. Yeah.
Diverting nukes that were meant for Japan, the US drops Little Boy on Moscow. The Kremlin and a large portion of the city is destroyed. This catches the Russian forces off guard, and the Allies are able to push closer to Berlin. However, after the shock goes away, the Russians slowly fight back the Americans and British. This goes in part with the fact that the Russians simply outnumbered the Allies and eventually would be able to beat them back. Perhaps a few more nuclear bombs would be dropped on Russia over the next few months, but this would not deter the Soviets. Soon the Russians would invade France and the Allies would retreat to Britain. Soviet V-2 rockets could then strike London. This scenario isn't an 100% prediction, but just judging by the balance of power, armies, and conditions of the time, it's a fair representation of what probably would have occurred. The British and Americans simply weren't in the position to battle the Soviets right after a world war. The Russians had taken...
It's a lot, because you gotta think about it. That means you have to add on to the already horrible loss of life that was World War II. Now you're talking about adding probably another freaking 50 to 70 million on top of that. Like, that's ridiculous. Just to take out the Russians, just let them be. Because obviously... Or to take out the Soviets, just let them be. Because obviously it crumbled on its own, you know?
in half of Europe and installed their own allied governments. That's the reason why Operation Unthinkable was never put into effect, or even considered as an immediate offensive measure. How do you think the world would be if Operation Unthinkable happened? Tell us in the comments. Like us on Facebook, subscribe if you have not done so. This is Cody from the Alternate History Hub.
Alright guys, we'll go ahead and end it there. So yeah, pretty crazy, because, I mean, just think about it, that's all I can think about, is just the horrible loss of life that did happen. So, obviously that would not be good, and it's good that didn't happen. But, again, thank you guys again for joining me on another episode of Mike's Intellectual Corner. I'll see you guys on another one. I'm out. Peace.